I'm Carly, and this is the Carly and Brooke Show, where we interview amazing authors and teach you tips and tricks on writing so that you can become a successful author someday. Be sure to check out our Instagrams for daily tips on writing. So I've been helping my friend and cousin plot their first ever book, and it got me thinking, I should make a video on this and help anyone else who's just starting their first ever book. Or maybe you're starting a new one, or even if you're already halfway through, it would be good to just ask yourself these questions, because if you don't know the answers, you might want to just stop for a minute, take a second to figure them out before you continue writing. So let's dive in. The first question is, what is your central story question? Now, in a very basic romance, this could be, is the guy gonna get the girl? Or in a mystery, it would be, is the detective gonna solve the murder? So this is your central story question that you want to introduce in the first chapter. Now, I know that sounds hard, but it helps the reader to latch onto something, and it will keep them going through your entire book if they know what that central story question is from the very beginning. If somebody asks them, hey, what's that book about that you're reading? And they say, I don't know, I'm a chapter or two in, but I don't know. You haven't done your job really as an author or a writer, in my opinion. So you want to introduce that central story question, at least within that first chapter or two, then that way the reader knows what the book is about. They know why they are reading. All right, so question number 2 is, what is your main character's overall goal? Now, hopefully, they throughout the novel will have many goals, but that one overall character arc goal, you need to know what that is from the beginning, and you want to introduce it again in the first chapter. And a rule of thumb is the first problem the character encounters is the last problem that they solve. If they achieve it halfway through, well then the book's going to lose its tension and the reader's not going to want to continue on. So you want, unless you introduce something new that they want even more than what that original goal was. I mean, you can kind of play around with it, but your character just should always want something, always be striving towards something, always working towards something in every scene, every chapter. And you want to state that too, as far as what that main character or whatever point of view character you're telling in, what they are trying to achieve step by step of the way. But basically in that first chapter, you want the reader to know what your main character's goal is. What are they trying to achieve? And that kind of ties in with your central story question. If it's a romance, are these two characters going to end up together? Okay, so what is your character's main overall goal? Is it to find love? Is it to love themselves before they can love somebody else? But you just want to know what that central goal is and what it is that they want. Now, what they want isn't the same thing as what they need. And as an author, as the writer, you need to know both. So you need to know what that character wants more than anything in life. And then you need to know what that character needs in order to grow and change into a better person or worse person, depending on which way you're taking their character arc. But those are kind of two separate things. They can correlate together or correspond together, but basically you want to know both of those. All right, so this brings us to question number 3, which we kind of talked about in number 2, and it is about what your character needs in order to grow and change. So you want your character, your main character, or any point of view, but even if you're doing multiple point of views, you always kind of have that main protagonist. And so you want to know what they need in order to change and grow. Now, like I said, they can change and grow into a better person or a worse person, but they can't just stay stagnant. They need to go one way or another. And so you need to know what they need in order for that to happen. So the first example of this that pops up into my head, and I think it works, but so in Harry Potter, because most everyone I believe has seen that, so it's easy to pull examples from that. So Harry Potter, right? So his overall goal is to defeat Voldemort. That is what his goal is. That is what he wants more than anything. Now, what does he need? He needs to come to terms with, well, spoiler if anyone hasn't seen it, he's the chosen one, right? And he is a Horcrux, so he himself has to die in order to kill Voldemort. And so when he has that realization and he's holding the stone, he basically, and he talks to his parents and Sirius Black and, Lupin, he has that moment where his character arc changes. He comes to terms with it. He is now changed as a person. He's not the same Harry Potter, who we met in the closet under the stairs, he is now this new person. He has changed, he has grown. So that's just a basic example of this. There's a lot of better ones. That was the first one that popped up into my head. All right, so our next question, number 4, what is their motivation for wanting this overall goal? Why does it mean so much to them? Why is this driving them with every decision, every action that they make? So you need to dig deep, and this motivation, it can't just be, well, they want to be happy. Well, they want to find love. Well, they want their dream job. It needs to be a little bit more of an emotional tie, because if your character doesn't care about it, if they don't care about it enough, then the reader won't. So find that motivation, find what's driving them, find what they want more than anything in life, connect the two, and you will have a much more interesting character and plot, especially if you can weave those two. You want to weave those two together, but you'll have a much more interesting character and plot because it wants something. There's drive to it. There's an actual story to follow. All right, so our next question, number 5, I think that this is the one that kind of trips people up the most. It's, what are your stakes? Okay, so the stakes, there's a lot of argument on this, but the stakes, in my opinion, and on a lot of other professors and other people who I've learned from, the stakes need to be either death for the character or worse than death for that character. So they either need to be afraid that they're going to lose their life, like fearing that they themselves are going to die, and that's why they are whatever, or they would rather die than have whatever this consequences that's going to happen to them. A good example of this is Breaking Bad. Again, a lot of people have seen it. If you haven't, sorry, spoiler, or turn it off. But so Walter White, his worse than death is, so he starts off, he already knows he has cancer. He's kind of already accepted the fact that he may or may not die. What he can't stand is the idea of leaving his family in debt. That is his worse than death. Leaving them in debt with his medical bills is just, he can't handle it. So that is his motivation for cooking meth, so that he could leave money behind for his family. Now, of course, we all know as the story proceeds, kind of the motivations change, the goals change, the story changes, but in the end, it kind of always stays true to those core elements of the whole series. All right, so this is our actual last one, number 6, and this is a personal question, only you can answer it, and it is, why are you the one to tell this story? What part of your truth of you is in this book, in this character, in this theme? Take a minute. You don't need to know this question right away. It should come naturally. You don't want to force it, but basically you want to know why you are the person to tell the story, why no one else, why no other writer can write this besides you. All right, so once you have these questions answered, then what? Well, then you kind of want to figure out what your future plot points are. Now, with writers, there are usually plotters or there are pantsers. Plotters, and there's in between, somebody who does a mix of both. Plotters know everything that is going to happen. That's me. I know every single scene. I know every single chapter before I actually start writing the book. Those things change drastically, but I like to have a very good idea about where I'm going before I even start. Now there's pantsers who don't have any idea where they start, and they just write from beginning to end and fix it up as they go. And then there's somebody in the middle who will take a little bit of both. So you need to figure out who that is for yourself. But no matter what your answer is, I would suggest, this is just my opinion, figuring out your plot points. There's not very many of them. I mean, depending on what story structure you follow, there's anywhere between 5 to 8 plot points. So those are just 5 to 8 events that you would want to brainstorm, and they take place between chapter 1 to chapter, the very ending chapter. But then at least then you have like 8 big events that you know you need the following events to lead up to it. So if you don't know what those plot points are, or you don't know anything about story structure, I have a video that I made on plot points. I'll link it right here, and I'll also link it in the description below. And you can check it out, and it will tell you the plot points of the story structure that I use. And so when you learn those plot points, you basically want to take what you learned, what you answered today, and think about events or think about scenes that you can tie in your character's goal, motivation, conflict, and stakes. So whatever those are personally to that character, and then tie it in with an event that needs to take place. For instance, the very first chapter, you want like a call to action, a triggering event, a hook, something that happens in that first chapter to push the reader on to continue reading. So you know what your character's goal is. Okay, so you know what motivates them. Okay, so you know what's at stake. You know why this means so much to them and what they stand to lose. Perfect. Okay, so you can take those questions that you answered and think of an event or think of some kind of a scene that could take place that is emotionally tied to your character, and that will make for a much more interesting plot. In stories, I'm going to make a video way more in depth about this later on, because I could go on forever about this, but with stories, there's usually an A story and a B story. So there's your plot. Those are the sequence of events that happens. That's things that are happening to your character, their day-to-day actions. Okay. And then there's the B story, which is their internal struggle. It's their internal conflict. It's why everything means so much to them. It's how they're growing and changing as a person. It's their character arc. And those you want to weave very beautifully, seamlessly into one another. And you want to have your plot work with your internal struggle work with your plot. And you want those both to just very weave in together throughout the book. And that is what makes a really good story. And that's going to be what keeps the reader turning pages. All right, so that is a good place to begin if you haven't already started writing, or just ask yourself if you already have started writing your book. But it's a good place to begin, and I've just started helping my cousin and friend plot their book. So as I go through this process with them, I will make more videos to help you all. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I will do my best to answer them, and I would love to hear from you. If you found this video valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe, ring the bell, so you'll be notified when our next video is up. Because every Wednesday or Thursday, Brooke and I post videos every Wednesday or Thursday to bring you tips and tricks on writing, and we'd love to have you on this author journey with us. Thanks everyone, and until next time, keep writing.